The conditionals are really easy to learn if you ask yourself two easy questions. One, is it about the past or about the present and the future? And two, is it real or is it imaginary and hypothetical? Let's see how we can use these two easy questions to see which conditional we should use. Type 0, 1, 2, 3, or mixed. Let's learn. Okay, it's really easy to learn. I'm going to show you some random conditionals here. What I'm going to do, regardless of the type, just look at these conditionals and tell me if this is real or unreal, or if we're talking about the present or the future or the past. Let's see. Number 1, if you mix red and yellow, you get green. Is this real or unreal? It's real because it can happen. Question number 2, is this about something that happened in the past, or can this always happen now in the future? Exactly. To answer question number 2, this can happen in the present and future. All right, let's see one more example. It's about a girl who failed her test. Now we can say, if she had studied harder, she would have passed. Now, let's answer those two questions. Is this about the present or the past? Well, she failed her test. So if she had studied in the past, she would have passed in the past. So to answer the question, the past or present or future, the answer is the past. And what about the second question, real or unreal? Unreal. We're talking about an imaginary situation in the past, a hypothetical situation in the past. So unreal. Let's see another example, shall we? If it rains, we will stay home. Real or unreal? Real, because right now it can rain and I can decide to stay home. So this can actually happen. Now the next question, about the present or the past? Yes, this conditional talks about the present or the future, and it's not about something in the past. Okay, I think you got the hang of real or unreal, or present or the past. Now let's learn the conditionals together, starting with type 0. Now let's talk about the 0 conditional. The 0 conditional basically talks about scientific facts that are always true, or your habits. You can use if, when, simple present, simple present. For example, if you heat water to 100 degrees Celsius, it boils. This is a scientific fact. It shows a cause and effect relationship that is always true. Let's see another example. If the sun sets, it gets dark, or when the sun sets, it gets dark. Again, this shows a scientific fact, something that will always happen. If it rains, the ground gets wet. Now, let's ask those two questions. Do you remember them? Real or unreal, about the present or the past? The first example was, if you heat water to 100 degrees Celsius, it boils. Is this true? Is this real or unreal? It's real. This can always happen. We're not imagining an imaginary situation, an unreal situation. It's real. Now, is this about the past, or does it always happen, present or the future? Whenever you heat water to 100 degrees Celsius, it boils. Okay, so present or the past? Present. And real or unreal? Real. So in type 0, it's always real, and it talks about the present, not about past actions. And again, a quick review: if, simple present, comma, simple present. Now let's talk about type 1. So we talked about the 0 conditional. When do we use the first conditional? Like this sentence. If it rains tomorrow, I will bring my umbrella. We use the first conditional to talk about the probable solutions and the possible consequences. If it rains, I will take an umbrella. If it rains, I might take an umbrella. So, notice how in this sentence, in the if clause, if it rains tomorrow, we use the simple present, but in the main clause, I will take an umbrella, we use will plus verb. If it rains tomorrow, I will stay home. Let's see. Let's ask ourselves those two questions, remember? Can this actually happen? Is it real? Or is it hypothetical, imaginary? It's real. It can actually happen. Now, is this about the past? Or is this about the present or the future? Great. If it rains tomorrow, I will take an umbrella. So it's about the future. Or if it rains tomorrow, I will stay home. Let's see another example. If we don't leave now, we won't arrive on time. So, possible solutions and probable consequences. The consequence or the bad thing that might happen here is arriving late. So, if we don't leave right now, we won't get there on time. Let's see. Is this about the future or the past? Exactly. It's about the present or the future. In the future, we will be late. In the future, we won't be on time. Now ask yourself, is this real or unreal? This can actually happen. We can still be late. So it's real. So in type 1 conditional, yes, it's real. And yes, it's about the present or the future. Let's see the next example. If he eats too much cake, he will feel sick. Real or unreal? It can actually happen. He can feel sick. So yes, real. Past or the future? It's about the future. Has he eaten a lot of cake yet? No, he hasn't. But if he does, he will feel sick. So in the first conditional, where we talk about the possible situations and their probable outcomes, we are talking about the present or the future, not the past. And also the situation is real. It can actually happen. It's not unreal or hypothetical. So the first conditional, or conditional type 1, talks about real or possible consequences for possible actions or situations. If you do this, you will feel good. If you do this, you won't feel bad. So, simple present in your if clause, if you do this, and will or won't plus verb in your main clause. So, we're talking about a possible and real outcome, and we're talking about the present or the future. Now, let's compare this with type 2 conditional, shall we? Remember our questions, real or unreal, present or the past? Now, the second conditional is used to talk about imaginary or unreal situations in the present or future and their imaginary results. Let's see how. If I had $1 million, I would travel the world. Let's talk about the questions. Is this real or unreal? Are we talking about a real situation or an imaginary, hypothetical, or unreal situation? Exactly. If I had $1 million, I would travel the world. It's unreal. So I can't travel the world. Which brings us to the second question. Are we talking about the present or the past? If I had $1 million, I would book my flight right now. I would start traveling the world right now. So it's about the present. So here's how those two questions can help you. If I had $1 million, I would travel the world. Present or the past, I would do it right now. So present. Real or unreal, imaginary? It's unreal, imaginary. Hypothetical. Do I have that money? Let's say I don't. No. Can I go on that trip? Can I travel the world? No, I can't. So it's imaginary. Also notice I said if I had $1 million. I didn't say if I have $1 million. Do you know what we call this? It's called the subjunctive mood. In the if clause, when you're talking about the second conditional, you use the subjunctive mood to show that you're talking about a hypothetical situation, an unreal situation. Let's see another example with the subjunctive mood. If she were taller, she would be a model. Let's say that she is 145 centimeters tall. If she were taller, she would be a model. Is she taller? No, she's not. Is she tall? Probably not. Can she be a model? No, she can't. But if she were, she could. So here, are we talking about a real situation or a hypothetical imaginary situation? We are imagining things. We are thinking about an imaginary world, saying that if she were taller, she could become a model. She would become a model. So real or unreal? Unreal, because she can't grow overnight. And are we talking about the past or present or future? We're talking about the future. If she were taller, she would be a model right now or in the future. So that's how these two questions, these two really easy questions, can help you identify which conditional you should use. Let's see one last example, shall we? If they knew the answer, they would tell us. If they knew the answer, they would tell us right now. So when you say if they knew the answer, they would tell us, are we talking about the past or the future? Exactly, the future. Also, are we talking about a hypothetical situation or a real situation? It's hypothetical. They don't know the answer, so they can't tell us the answer. But if they did, they would. Notice how I said if they did. If they knew the answer, they would tell us. So again, I'm using the subjunctive mood in the if clause. If she were taller, if they knew the answer, if I had $1 million, or like that Beyonce song says, if I were a boy. I think she said, if I were a boy, I would come home late. Do you know the lyrics? Can you find that line from the lyrics and type it in the comment section below? Yes, you can hear the second conditional in that song by Beyonce. So in our last example, if they knew the answer, they would tell us. We're using the subjunctive mood, if they knew, simple past, in the if clause, and would plus verb in the main clause. They would tell us. To have a more well-rounded understanding of the second type conditionals, it's also good to know that you can use it with other modals. For example, if she were taller, she could become a model. In the second conditional, you don't always have to use would in the main clause. Sometimes you want to convey less certainty. So if she were taller, she would become a model is more certain than if she were taller, she could become a model. Here we're not that certain. We're just suggesting that this could be a possibility. Moving on to type 3. So the third conditional talks about a hypothetical situation and its imagined results in the past. Let's say that Sarah watched a movie. It was a very scary movie, and she couldn't sleep last night. Now listen to this conditional. If she hadn't seen that movie, she would have slept more peacefully. Did she watch the movie? Yes, she did. But if she hadn't seen that movie, she would have slept more peacefully. Did she sleep well? No, she did not. So, an imaginary situation with an imaginary result in the past, because this happened last night. So, let's answer those questions again. Present or the past? Definitely the past. This happened last night. Real or unreal? We're talking about an unreal situation. If she hadn't watched the movie, she would have slept more peacefully. But she did, so it's unreal. Let's see one more example, shall we? Let's say that Jack missed a very important event. The next day, his friend calls him and says, "Hey, why did you miss that very important event?" Now Jack says, "If I had known about the event, I would have attended." Did he know about the event? No. Or at least he says so. Did he attend? No, he did not attend the event. So, and this happened in the past. If he had known about it, he would have attended it, but he didn't, and this happened in the past. So, unreal and in the past. Do you see how those two questions, those two simple questions can help you? You can identify different conditionals, different types of conditionals by asking yourself those simple questions, and also use those two questions when you want to produce the right kind of conditional yourself. Let's see one more example. John would have passed the exam if he had studied harder. Did he pass the exam? No, he did not. Did he study as hard as he possibly could? Probably not. Apparently not. So this happened in the past, and it's hypothetical, imaginary, unreal. We are saying that if he had studied past perfect, he would have passed. So if you want to talk about something that happened in the past, and if you wish to talk about an unreal situation with unreal or imaginary results, that is your type 3 conditional. If that had happened, we would have done this. Or if that hadn't happened, we would have done this. Just like that. One more thing. Did you notice how in the last sentence we did not use a comma? What was the sentence? Can you remember? John would have passed the exam if he had studied harder. When you use the main clause first, you don't need a comma. John would have passed the test if he had studied harder. But if you use the if clause first, if he had studied harder, he would have passed the test. You need a comma. Do you remember our previous example? If I had known about the event, I would have attended. You could also say it like this. I would have attended the event if I had known about it. And by using the main clause first, we don't need a comma anymore. Now, before moving on to the last type, we need to have a quick review. We need to talk about type 2 and type 3, because just like puzzle pieces with the main clause and the if clause, we're going to take something from type 2 and something from type 3 to make our mixed conditionals. Are you ready? Do you remember type 2? Think of an example right now. I'm going to talk about our first example. If I had $1 million, I would travel the world, or I could travel the world. It's talking about a hypothetical situation, and we are talking about it happening right now or in the future. So in the if clause, we're using the subjunctive mood. If I had $1 million, if I knew the answer, if I were a boy, if I were a boy. Remember Beyonce's song? Now, you might have heard if she was taller, but that's not considered correct English. So it's okay to use it in your speaking when you're talking to a native speaker, but not when you're taking a test, or not when you want to show that you can speak correct English. So we use the subjunctive mood in the if clause. If I had $1 million, if she were taller, if I knew the answer. And we use would plus verb in the main clause. I would travel the world. She would become a model. I would tell you the answer, or they would tell us. Let's quickly review the fourth conditional we talked about, type 3. If she hadn't seen that scary movie, she would have slept more peacefully. But she watched it, and she didn't sleep well last night. In the if clause, if she hadn't seen, past perfect. And in the main clause, she would have slept. Would plus have plus past participle. She would have slept. She would have tried. She would have done. She would have seen. She would have gone. So often students remember the would and have, but they say went. That's not the one you need. She would have done. She would have slept. Past participle, not simple past. Now that we've reviewed type 2 conditionals and type 3, we're ready to learn the mixed conditionals. So to tell you a little about mixed conditional, there's a type that most books teach you, and there's a type that is most common. So if you want to know how to form the mixed conditional, first you got to know the second conditional and the third one, because we typically mix and match the if clause from one type and the main clause from another. Let's see how. For example, if I had studied harder, I would have a better job now. See how we mixed that? We mixed if I had studied from the third conditional with I would have a better job now from the second condition. So if I had studied harder, I would have a better job now. Let's see another example. Enough about studying. If she hadn't moved abroad, we would still be neighbors. If she hadn't moved abroad, we would still be neighbors. Or if she hadn't moved abroad, we would be close friends now. Or if she hadn't moved abroad, we would be close friends. Did she move abroad? Yes, in the past. But if she hadn't, a hypothetical outcome could have been us being friends today. So if she hadn't moved abroad, we would be close friends today. Did you see how we mixed if she hadn't moved abroad from the third conditional with we would be close friends today from the second one? Let's say that you want to talk about two business partners that are very successful today. You can say, if they hadn't started their business 5 years ago, they wouldn't be so successful today. If they hadn't started their business, they wouldn't be so successful today. Another example is, if she had saved more money, she wouldn't have financial problems now. Did she save more money in the past? No, she did not. Does she have some financial problems now? Yes, she does, unfortunately. So we are connecting an if clause from the past, a situation from the past, with the main clause now, a result in the present. If she had saved more money, she wouldn't have financial problems today, or she wouldn't have financial problems now. Now, let's talk about another type of mixed conditionals that you may not see in many books. We talked about mixing and matching the if clause from the third conditional, if I had done that, with the main clause from the second conditional, I would plus verb. What if we did it the other way around? What if we took the if clause from the second conditional to talk about the present, and then the main clause from the third conditional, talking about the past? Let's see how that would work. I will provide 3 examples, but hey, if you find it confusing, just learn the first type of the mixed conditionals, okay? Let's say that you want to talk about being knowledgeable. Let's say that you want to talk about having some sort of knowledge, being knowledgeable in a specific aspect, which is something that can happen in the past, present, or future, always. Let's use type 2 conditional to talk about its if clause. For example, if I had a better understanding of technology, now let's talk about what I could have done or would have done in the past. I would have invested in Bitcoin 5 years ago. I would have done something in the past. That is an example of how you can use the second type of the mixed conditionals. I'll give you one last example. If I knew how to cook, I would have prepared a delicious meal for my family last night. In this mixed conditional, we borrowed the if clause from the second conditional and the main clause from the third conditional. I would have prepared a meal in the past. So, if I knew how to cook, I would have prepared a delicious meal for my family last night. But if you find this challenging, just learn the first type, where we borrow the if clause from the third conditional and the main clause from the second conditional, such as, if she had studied harder in school, she would have a better job now. Or, if he hadn't moved abroad, we would be close friends today. Or, if they had invested in that company, they would be millionaires today. Or, if he had saved more money, he wouldn't have financial problems now. So, let's review what we learned today. We ask ourselves, is it real or unreal? We also ask ourselves, did it happen in the past, or are we talking about the present or the future? With zero conditional, it's always real and it's not imaginary, and it talks about the present. It's a general truth. For example, if you heat water to 100 degrees Celsius, it boils. If you mix red and blue, you get purple. Let's review the first conditional. It also talks about the present. It talks about real and possible future outcomes. In the if clause, just like type 0, we use if plus simple present. But in the main clause, we use will. For example, if it rains, I will take an umbrella. If I eat too much cake, I will feel sick. That's a possible outcome. In the present and future, and also real, it's not imaginary. It's probable, it's possible, it can happen. In the second conditional, we talked about hypothetical situations and their imaginary outcomes. For example, if she had enough money, she would travel the world. So real or unreal? It's unreal. If she had enough money, we're using the subjunctive mood. If I had enough money. If I were a boy. If she were taller. We're not using was to show that we can speak correct English. So if plus past tense, which is the subjunctive mood, and in the main clause, we have would plus verb to talk about hypothetical situations with their present or future hypothetical or imagined outcome. And to review type 3 very quickly, we talked about a past situation, an imaginary past situation, with an unreal imagined past outcome. For example, if she had asked me for help, I would have helped her. So in the if clause, we use past perfect. If she had asked for help, or if she had told me that she needed help, I would have helped her. Would plus have plus past participle. I would have helped her. Is it real or unreal? It's unreal. It's an imaginary situation. Did this happen in the present or past? It happened in the past. And as for the last type we're going to review today, let's talk about the mixed conditionals. We usually use them with a past condition with a present or future result. For example, if Jack had studied harder, he would have a better job today. So if Jack had studied harder, we borrow that from type 3, past perfect, he would have a better job today. We borrow that from type 2, would plus verb. And as for the less common one, a present situation with a past result, we borrow the if clause from the second conditional and the main clause from the third. For example, if she were more confident, she would have become an actor. All of these mixed types are unreal. I hope our lesson today and this summary help you quickly identify the conditionals and never get confused when it comes to using a conditional sentence ever again. Thanks for studying with me. Once again, I'm Faye, a Cambridge certified English teacher who's been teaching English since 2011. Let me know what you think of today's lesson or whether or not you have any questions. I'll try to answer all the comments. Bye now.